Imagine spending your entire adult life within the sterile, echoing halls of an airport. For Mehran Karimi Nasri, also known as Sir Alfred, this wasn't a hypothetical. For 18 long years, Terminal 1 of Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris became his unlikely home. His story is one shrouded in mystery and bureaucratic absurdity. How did a man end up living in an airport for nearly 2 decades? What series of events led him to become a permanent fixture amongst the transient travelers? The answer, as you might suspect, is far from simple. But the most shocking part of Nasri's story isn't just his extended stay. It's what he did after finally leaving the airport's embrace. It's a twist so unexpected, so deeply ironic, that it challenges everything we think we know about home, freedom, and the human spirit. Prepare to be captivated by the extraordinary life of Mehran Karimi Nasri, a man who lived in an airport and whose final act will leave you speechless. His tale is more than just a bizarre anecdote. It's a poignant reflection on the search for belonging in a world that often leaves us stranded. To understand how a man could make an airport his home for nearly 2 decades, we need to rewind to the beginning of Mehran Karimi Nasri's journey. Born in 1945 in Masjid Soliman, Iran, his early life offered few hints of the extraordinary circumstances to come. He was the son of an Iranian doctor and a British nurse. At some point, he left Iran to study at the University of Bradford in England. It was upon his return to Iran, however, that his troubles began. Nasri claimed he was arrested and expelled for protesting against the Shah's regime. This alleged persecution formed the basis of his application for political asylum across Europe. He began a nomadic quest, seeking refuge in various countries, including Germany and the Netherlands. Each application was met with rejection. Driven by a desperate need for sanctuary, he eventually sought asylum in Belgium, where, in 1981, he was granted refugee status. This seemingly provided a path towards a new life, a chance to escape the shadows of his past. But fate, as it often does, had other plans in store for Mehran Karimi Nasri. The next twist in his story would be the loss of those crucial documents. The exact details surrounding the loss of Nasri's refugee documents remain somewhat murky. Contributing to the enduring mystique surrounding his story, one account suggests his briefcase, containing the vital papers, was stolen while he was traveling in France. Another version claims he mailed the documents to the UK while attempting to gain entry there, and they were lost in transit. Regardless of the specific circumstances, the consequences were devastating. Without his papers, Nasri found himself in a legal black hole. He was no longer able to prove his refugee status in Belgium, and therefore, he could not legally enter France, nor could he be deported anywhere, as he had no recognized nationality to return to. This bureaucratic nightmare landed him in the transit zone of Charles de Gaulle Airport in 1988. He was essentially a man without a country, trapped in a legal limbo of international proportions. The airport became a holding pen, a temporary solution that stretched into an agonizingly long and indefinite sentence. He was caught in a web of international laws and regulations, a victim of circumstance and the slow grind of bureaucratic gears. The loss of those documents wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a life sentence to statelessness. And so, Terminal 1 became Nasri's world. He established a routine, carving out a semblance of normalcy within the chaotic environment of an international airport. He slept on a red plastic bench, surrounded by his belongings, stacks of documents, newspapers, and personal items crammed into boxes and shopping bags. He spent his days reading, writing in his diary, and observing the constant flow of travelers passing through. Airport staff grew accustomed to his presence. They brought him food, offered him blankets, and generally looked out for him. He became a familiar, albeit unusual, fixture. Passengers, intrigued by his story, would often stop to talk to him, offering him food, books, and sometimes even money. He became known as Sir Alfred, a name he seemingly adopted himself, but beneath the surface of this strange existence lay a deep sense of isolation, the constant noise, the lack of privacy, and the uncertainty of his situation took a toll on his mental health. The airport, meant to be a place of transit, had become his prison. The days blurred into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into years, each one adding to the weight of his predicament. He was living. But was he truly alive? The question hung heavy in the air of Terminal 1. As the years passed, Nasseri's story began to attract attention. News articles appeared in international newspapers, and television crews descended upon Terminal 1, eager to document the life of the airport man. He became a symbol of the plight of refugees and the absurdities of bureaucratic systems. His fame grew, transforming him from an anonymous figure into a minor celebrity. People recognized him, wanting to take pictures with him and hear his story firsthand. He gave interviews, sharing his experiences and his views on the world. He even started receiving fan mail. Hollywood, inevitably, came calling. Director Steven Spielberg was inspired by Nasseri's story and used it as the basis for his film, The Terminal, starring Tom Hanks. While the film was a fictionalized account, it brought Nasseri's situation to a wider audience than ever before and, of course, brought in some money for Nasseri. Suddenly, Nasseri found himself in a strange position. He was famous, his story known around the world, and he even had some financial security thanks to the film, but he was still trapped in the airport, his legal status unresolved. The irony was almost unbearable. A man who had lost everything had, in a way, gained everything, except his freedom. Then came the truly perplexing part of the story. In 1999, after years of legal battles, Nasseri was finally offered residency in Belgium, the country that had originally granted him refugee status. He could return, reclaim his life, and leave the airport behind. The French authorities also offered him the possibility of residency in France. But, to the astonishment of everyone involved, Nasseri refused. He claimed he was no longer sure of his identity, that he preferred the life he had made for himself in the airport. Some speculated that he had become institutionalized, unable to cope with the outside world after so long in isolation. Others believed he had developed a form of mental illness, making it impossible for him to make rational decisions. Whatever the reason, his refusal to leave was baffling. Here was a man who had spent years fighting for his freedom, only to reject it when it was finally offered. It was a paradox, a cruel twist in a story already filled with them. Why would he choose to remain in the airport, surrounded by the constant noise and the ever-present reminder of his statelessness? The answer, it seemed, lay deep within the recesses of his mind, a place that remained largely inaccessible to the outside world. As the years continued to accumulate within the airport's walls, the effects of prolonged isolation and uncertainty became increasingly apparent. Nasseri's mental state began to visibly deteriorate. His grip on reality seemed to loosen, and he exhibited increasingly eccentric behaviors. He became more withdrawn, less communicative. His once organized collection of belongings became increasingly chaotic. Reflecting the turmoil within his mind, he would often mumble to himself, lost in his own thoughts and memories. Airport staff, who had once been friendly and supportive, grew increasingly concerned. His hygiene suffered, and his physical health began to decline. The airport, with its sterile environment and recycled air, was not conducive to long-term well-being. He developed various ailments, both physical and psychological. It became clear that his continued stay in the airport was taking a severe toll on his overall health. The man who had once been a symbol of resilience was now a poignant reminder of the fragility of the human mind and the devastating effects of prolonged isolation. The airport, his chosen prison, was slowly consuming him. In 2006, after 18 years of living in Terminal 1, Nasseri's airport saga finally came to an end, at least temporarily. He became ill and was hospitalized, requiring medical attention that the airport could not provide. His removal from the airport was facilitated by a French lawyer, Philippe Deland, who had been assisting him with his case for many years. Following his hospitalization, Nasseri was moved to a shelter in Paris, funded by the money he had received from the film, The Terminal. This marked his first experience of living outside the airport in nearly 2 decades. It was a significant transition, a leap into the unknown after years of predictable routine. Adjusting to life outside the airport proved to be challenging. He struggled to adapt to the norms of everyday life, finding it difficult to interact with people and navigate the complexities of the outside world. The institutionalization of the airport had taken its toll, leaving him ill-equipped to cope with the freedom he had once so desperately craved. He was finally free, but he was also lost. For a time, Nasseri lived a quiet, relatively anonymous life in the shelter. The media attention that had once surrounded him faded away. He was no longer the airport man, but simply a resident of a homeless shelter in Paris. He received assistance from social workers and medical professionals who worked to help him adjust to his new life. However, reports suggest that he never fully integrated into society. The years spent in isolation had left an indelible mark on his psyche. He remained withdrawn and struggled with social interaction. He was haunted by the past, unable to escape the memories of his time in the airport. He lived in the shelter for several years, his existence largely unnoticed by the outside world. He was no longer a symbol, no longer a news story. He was simply a man trying to find his place in a world that had moved on without him. He was attempting to build a new life, but the foundation upon which he was building was fragile and unsteady. Constructed from the fragments of a broken past, it seemed a somewhat sad but fitting end to an extraordinary story, but the story wasn't over. Then, in the fall of 2022, news outlets reported a shocking and deeply unsettling development. Mehran Karimi Nasseri had returned to Charles de Gaulle Airport. He had seemingly chosen to return to the place that had defined so much of his life. He spent his final weeks in the same Terminal 1 where he had lived for so many years. His belongings once again surrounding him. It was as if he were trying to rewind time, to recapture something that he had lost. On November 12, 2022, Mehran Karimi Nasseri died of a heart attack in the airport that had been his home for so long. He was 76 years old. The money he had earned from the terminal was reportedly with him at the time of his death. His return to the airport and his subsequent death there sent shockwaves around the world. It was a tragic and poignant end to an extraordinary life. A final act that underscored the complexities of his story and the enduring power of place and memory. Why did he return? What compelled him to spend his final days in the airport that he had both endured and, in some ways, embraced? The reasons behind Nasseri's decision to return to the airport remain a subject of speculation and debate. Did he feel more at home in the sterile, predictable environment of Terminal 1 than in the complexities of the outside world? Had he become so deeply institutionalized that he was unable to function anywhere else? Or was it a final, desperate attempt to reclaim a part of his identity that he felt he had lost? Perhaps the airport represented a sense of security and familiarity, a place where he was known and, in some ways, cared for. Maybe the outside world, with its demands and expectations, simply proved too overwhelming. It's possible that the airport, despite its limitations, had become his only true home. It's also worth considering the possibility that his mental health played a significant role in his decision. The years of isolation and uncertainty had undoubtedly taken a toll, and it's possible that he was no longer able to make rational choices, whatever the reason. His return to the airport speaks to the profound impact that place and circumstance can have on the human psyche. It's a testament to the enduring power of habit, memory, and the search for belonging, even in the most unlikely of places. Mehran Karimi Nasseri's life, and particularly his death, serves as a powerful symbol of displacement, the complexities of asylum, and the often unforeseen consequences of bureaucratic processes. His story highlights the human cost of statelessness and the challenges faced by refugees and asylum seekers around the world. He also embodies the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the extraordinary circumstances he faced, he managed to carve out a life for himself, maintaining his dignity and sense of self, even in the most dehumanizing of environments. He found a way to adapt and survive. becoming a symbol of hope and perseverance for many. His story raises fundamental questions about home, identity, and freedom. What does it mean to belong? Where do we find our sense of place? And what happens when we are denied the basic rights and freedoms that most of us take for granted? Nasri's life forces us to confront these questions and to consider the plight of those who are often marginalized and forgotten. In the end, his legacy is a reminder of our shared humanity and the importance of empathy and compassion in a world that is often characterized by division and indifference. Ultimately, Mehran Karimi Nasri's story remains an enigma, a puzzle with pieces that never quite fit together perfectly. We can speculate about his motivations, analyze his actions, and ponder the deeper meaning of his life, but we will never truly know what drove him. Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps his story is not meant to be fully understood, but rather to be contemplated, to be used as a lens through which we can examine our own assumptions about home, identity, and the human condition. His life was a testament to the power of the human spirit to endure, to adapt, and to find meaning. Even in the most unlikely of circumstances, it was also a stark reminder of the fragility of the human mind and the devastating effects of isolation and displacement. Mehran Karimi Nasri, the man who lived in an airport, left behind a legacy that will continue to resonate for years to come. He was a symbol of our times, a reflection of the complexities and contradictions of the modern world, and his story, with its shocking twist, will forever challenge us to think differently about what it means to be human.